Well, hello everyone. How you doing? Pastors Zach and Kristin Sgro here from Neighborhood Church, getting ready to go through session 2 of emotionally healthy relationships with you all. And before we do that, I have just one quick announcement for you. So if you've been tuning in with us for any period of time, you know that we made the move some time ago to separate out into a variety of different house churches that would meet most on Sunday mornings, one during a night of the week, and that we did that to really be able to live our lives together better during the pandemic, as well as to be a bit safer. And so if that's something that interests you, or you are wanting to find out a little bit more about who Neighborhood Church is, I would ask that you would fill out our online Connect card that will be posted here in the body of the message on Facebook if you're watching via that, or if you're on our YouTube channel, you just go to our website and you would fill out the online Connect card there. But getting ready to kick things off in session 2 of Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. In today's discussion, which is the title of our message here for this morning, it's Stop Mind Reading and Clarify Expectations. And so, Kristin, could you take some time just to maybe explain for our audience a little bit more about what that exactly is?
Sure. So the mind reading happens every time you think about a person and a situation that you've maybe been in with that person, and you put a story behind it. It's a story that's in your own head, no one else knows about it, and you come up with a story that either approves of what they've done or hasn't approved, not approving of what they've done.
Could be a true story or a false story.
A true story or a false story. I think they did this because they really like me, which could be true and could not be true.
Assumptions.
An assumption. And then, would you like me to give an example?
Sure, if you'd like to.
So as an example, I got together with a friend most recently because I like to call them false stories, but I had an assumption in my head that I knew what this person was thinking based on their behavior, just based on their behavior towards me. And so I know better now from the heartache that I've gone through from living out of these false stories and these assumptions, that I reached out to the person and I asked, could I test out my assumptions that I'm hearing in my mind that I'm pushing away, but I really need to clarify if any of these are true. Mm-hmm. And that helped me. It made my heart feel better. It helped me to stop those stories and wait to when I met the person.
That's good. So what you're saying is stopping the mind reading that we do helps us to eliminate the creation of stories in our own mind that may or may not be true.
Correct. And then you want me to hit on the
clarifying expectations. Yes, absolutely.
I'm clarifying that you want me to.
That's good. You see that? We're doing it right now for you.
So to not clarify expectations would look something like this. Me expecting you, Zach, to know one of my preferences and expectations and to do it without me ever telling Zach that I expect that or I prefer that. It's almost as if I maybe expect you to do it because you should be mind reading, the very thing that we're being told not to.
Absolutely. And Scripture forbids that.
So I find myself, I can do that a lot with you. Instead of just saying and having that weird conversation, I expect this is what it would look like.
We'll get to that. I'm going to interrupt. We'll get to that at the very end.
Sure.
So let me ask you, before I get into a story from Scripture that illustrates the points even further, what are some of the consequences of mind reading, creating these false stories, and not clarifying expectations?
Broken friendships, broken family relationships, job performance, in a job, right?
Yeah. Depression, maybe?
Depression, putting up walls, right? You've lived out of a story for so long that you don't know is true or false, and so you put up walls, right? You start hiding all of those.
One of those things, too, is I think one of those consequences is, which will be a great transition into our story, is that you can begin to do things that you didn't necessarily need to do or want to do or have to do. And that kind of is a good transition into the story. So I'm going to share with you all the story of Mary and Martha, and that's from Luke chapter 10. It's verses 38 and 42. I'm going to read it here for you, but feel free to follow along with me in Scripture if you'd like. But as I share that, and for you especially, as we're going to do some more dialoguing here, but for you that are watching, I want you to think of these questions and ponder these as I read this story. And it's, what do you think contributed to Mary making the decision to sit at the feet of Jesus? And what do you think contributed to Martha choosing to spend time preparing and serving? Also think, what assumptions do you think Mary made about Jesus and the situation that led her to do what she did? And what assumptions do you think Martha had about the situation that led her to prepare and serve for that time period? And then in the story, we're going to see how think about how she clarified her expectations and maybe what she could have done differently before that evening began. And so with that, think of those questions. I'm going to begin in verse 38 of Luke chapter 10. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me." But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." And so, Kristin, as you read that story, what are some of your thoughts about what has transpired and some of the questions that I have asked?
Well, about the one question about the clarifying. How did Martha clarify her expectations? She seemed to try and get Jesus to agree with her.
So right now, just so you guys are aware, I have a kid underneath that has snuck in. He might pop up in the video or not. I have no idea.
We're going to keep recording.
But we are going to keep getting after it and recording and not do another take.
Okay, so anyway.
He will face a consequence for that later, by the way.
So Martha did some type of clarifying, but it was almost like she was trying to get Jesus to...
Talk to the video. I'm going to go shut the door.
It almost seemed like she was trying to get Jesus to agree with her that it was unfair that she was doing all the work. So it wasn't even like in a question form or, hey, do you think this is bad? It's, don't you think it's unfair?
I missed a little bit of that, obviously,
Sure.
as I had to step away.
Sure.
But what else do you think?
What struck me was Mary and Martha are sisters. Why does the one sister have it within her to sit at the feet of Jesus and the other one doesn't?
Maybe she went through Sgro's emotional healthy spirituality course.
It could
I'm
be.
just kidding.
It could be.
Have you shared at all any of the cultural aspects while I stepped away briefly? No.
So culturally back then, it was looked upon that women should be in the kitchen or whatever it would have looked like back then. Certainly they had kitchens, but that they should be serving the men, serving the guests, preparing something for everybody to eat. So culturally, Martha obviously picked up on that. Mary is not choosing to do that, but Martha picked up on those cultural cues that it would be bad if she didn't do something like that.
And I don't want to make assumptions about what people 2,000 years ago thought, but clearly Martha assumed that those particular cultural values were still in play, and that's what Jesus expected her to do, whereas she could have maybe asked him different questions like, Lord, what is it that you'd like to see prepared food-wise for the evening tonight? Would it be okay if I did that? Would it be okay if I sat at your feet? Which, the irony of which is, it's not as if Mary didn't make any assumptions either. She assumed those cultural values, one of which was men were to be taught by rabbis, which Jesus was, and women were not supposed to be a part of those meetings. And she made the assumption that it was okay for her
Right.
to sit in. And so all the way around, people were making assumptions in this story. And Martha even goes a bit further to clarify the expectations. But at least from my perspective, she just wanted Jesus to say, Mary, get up and go help your
Right.
sister.
And I'm wondering, even as you're talking, Zach, that, maybe Mary obviously understood who this Jesus was, and Martha maybe didn't yet. Maybe, back then, I remember even in the Old Testament, everybody, when the angels would visit, or anybody that was sent by God, the people would hurry up real quick and make some feast and make something for, the man of the Lord to eat. And so Jesus doesn't expect those, and we know that now. Maybe Mary knew something that Martha didn't.
It's quite possible. It's quite possible. So I'm hoping that from this particular story in Scripture, and maybe even from what we're sharing, and we'll get into some of how to practice those skill sets here in just a couple seconds, that you guys are gleaning how better to communicate with your spouse, with a significant other, in a job setting, in order to quit mind reading and clarify your expectations so you don't find yourselves in unwanted situations doing things that don't need to be done and creating false stories in your head and living out of those false stories that can lead to, Martha being upset with her sister when she didn't need to be, or can lead to a broken friendship or a broken relationship or being fired from a job or one thing or another. So with that, would you like to engage a little bit in some of these skill sets? So we need to turn and face each other. And so I'm going to do maybe the expectation one with you. And then maybe we can dialogue a little bit about that. So Kristin, I have the expectation that because it's important to me that when I ask you to maybe call the insurance company or have the kids bring up the trash cans from the street, that will actually happen. Is that a fair expectation in your mind? And if not, would you please tell me why?
No, that seems fair. And I think I always forget you're asking me because you just said that you care about those things.
Yes.
Maybe I hear it through a different, maybe I'm not hearing it how you're saying it.
So you're making an assumption about me.
Yes.
So we'll get into that in a minute. But so when it doesn't occur, as sometimes it doesn't, like it did this past week, I can sometimes, although I'm getting better, I can sometimes assume, I can mind read that it's unimportant to you. Is that the case? And be honest.
Sometimes.
Sure.
Sometimes it's unimportant, and other times I am living out of a story that I've created in my head as I'm home with the kids, or, the one child that's home, the rest are at school, and, well, you're not doing much, Kristin, so the least you can do, I hear it when you ask to do those things. That's the lens that I hear it through, or that's the earpiece.
So how can I help to clarify what I'm asking to let you know that it's just something that I value, that if you have time in your day that you're able to do those things?
I think, and this is good. This is really good.
Are you learning something now?
Huh?
Are you learning something?
Yeah.
She's actively learning as we're filming.
Knowing that, and I maybe said this on the last time we filmed, using the words I notice and I prefer, when you ask me to do it, I will hear it through the lens that Pete Sgro has designed and Jerry has designed those words to communicate. Yes. I know what you mean as you're really sharing something that's, important to you, and you really hope for me to get it done, and you would like for me to get it done. That's good.
So I'll do better at using those types of words and clarifying, and then when it's not done, using those types of words to ask why, rather than just saying, yeah, I know the garbage didn't get pulled up, I had to do it. So right, okay, that's good. I appreciate that. Would you like to share? And don't hit me with a doozy unknowingly like you did last week.
No, I haven't. I'm trying to give thought to it right now. And what's the verbiage that we use? I notice and I prefer?
No. That was last week's.
Oh, okay.
Stop mind reading and clarifying expectations that you have.
Okay, that's right. So to clarify, and this might be unfair, and so you'll have to tell me if it's an unfair expectation. I expect you to be home by 6 p.m. ready to do anything hands-on with the kids that need to be in order for me to cook, or switch roles. When you come home, I'll take care of kids and you cook. I expect that, and so sometimes I don't tell you that.
Okay.
And then if you maybe get home and needed to finish up some work in your office.
That's a fair expectation for you to have a meet. Can I clarify something? Sure. There are times and instances where, I need to meet with somebody, or there's things that are going on. Obviously, emergency situations are different, but if I know of something, is it okay for me to expect that if I share those things with you, and it's going out and having a meeting, or maybe needing to eat dinner with someone for whatever purpose necessary, how would you like me to share those with you so that I can meet your expectations?
I think just taking the time to use that verbiage so it's communicated across to me that you actually care and how you're addressing me, and I've given thought to it.
Okay.
Instead of, not that you've done this recently, but instead of, well, sorry, I'm not going to be home. I got to go meet with so-and-so.
Which I know I have done.
Yeah, you have, and it doesn't always bother me, but I would like us.
That's good.
To have better communication.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you doing that. And for those of y'all tuning in, look, this, again, as I said last video, it might seem corny, it might seem goofy, it certainly sometimes seems awkward, even for us to do it, but even just incorporating bits and pieces of this will help you communicate better with your spouse, with your significant other, will help lead you into having that emotionally healthy relationship with those you desire to have a relationship with, and in a job setting, or so on and so forth. And so, as always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank my wife and co-pastor and best friend in this world for helping us out here on Sunday morning. And as always, may you all go in the grace and peace and mercy of Jesus. Thanks, guys.